tying this in to authenticity, right?
Yeah.
So manifestation first truly starts with knowing, one, who you are authentically to your core, but also knowing what your core authentic desires and wants are.
Yeah.
And so when you think about manifesting from that authentic core, what kind of comes to mind? And I guess more importantly for listeners, how do we do this?
I think it's important that you actually clarify what you want and to be more specific about it, as specific as you can. And that way you know what you're trying to manifest. So, when I think about me manifesting living in LA and New York, I was pretty specific about where I wanted to be. Now, if I just had a big city, I mean, that could be any place, but maybe it wouldn't have worked if I went to Chicago, because I don't like the cold. New York is cold, but there's an element of it that's like magical to me. But also once you clarify it, and I think clarification can come from activities like writing it down, journaling. I think for those of y'all who are spiritual, there are kind of elements in certain sacred texts that are about like writing things down and making it plain that can be helpful. But even if you're not spiritual, I think like the psychology stands behind like the importance of writing something down and how helpful it can be. You can visualize it, create visual boards, or visualize it in your mind, like whatever that goal is. So that's like one thing that I would do, I think, to start that off. Anything that you can think about to add to that?
Yeah, and I think it does. And you kind of tapped into all different areas because everyone is different. Some people like to write things out, journal, some are more visual. So like the vision boards and all that. And it's funny, and I was looking for this piece of paper and I could not find it. So that again shows my relationship with manifestation, because I'm like, I threw away this paper that I was so intentional about in the past. But I read this book called The Circle Maker, and it came up in a sermon one day at church. And so it's more like spiritual and prayerful, but it has you writing out like all these prayers that you have, and it can just be like 1 or 2 words. So prayers and like goals. But the book's about like, this simple act of circling them, right? But it's being intentional and almost like saying a prayer with it and like manifesting in a sense. And so when we were prepping for this, I'm like, I still have the book, but I'm like, do I still have my paper? And I'm like, I really threw it away because I was interested to see like some of the things I wrote down, right? And I feel some of the things I'm doing now were on there, but I wanted to actually like see. But at that time, that was helpful for me, like writing it, yes, but I need a little more. So doing something with that writing, if it's like circling it or like coloring over it or just doing something with it. So I'm always engaging in it. I'm not just writing it and leaving it. Yeah. And that was the thing even with vision boards for me. Fun to do, but a lot of times it's like you do it and then you don't look at it again. It ends up like on the wall, then it falls off the wall, then it's like under the bed, right? It's just like you don't engage with it. So if any of you are like me, maybe you're not, but you might need that engagement. So if you journal, write, but also how are you going to engage with it? Yeah. So you're very intentional about it.
Agree. And what I would add to that, and like another possible way, is to actually like experience it. So if you want to manifest something, if you want to live in a new place or do a new job, like actually going to that place or putting yourself in that environment or being around people that do it so that you can kind of help understand what it is like to know if it even fits with you and to maybe get some connections towards that. But what you were saying about like, I think you said doing it or something to that effect. And I do think that it's important to clarify and to identify and be specific about what you want in whatever ways you do that. But you also have to like create an action plan. You have to engage in behaviors. And I do think like creating a plan can be helpful, although, a lot of things happen without a plan. So that's fine too. Yeah. But commit to action and commit to what you're going to do to try to move that goal or that dream around to manifest it. And then I would say like to be open to life. Because this is where I think, and maybe the be open places, maybe where like the woo-woo stuff or maybe the spiritual stuff for those of you who are spiritual or whatever the unnameable thing is, I think it's that openness to life, that after you've declared what you want, you believe it, you engage in behaviors that might lead towards it, perhaps that openness to life, because life may happen and opportunities may present themselves that you didn't think about. But an openness to that might kind of get you where you want to go ultimately. It makes me think about the book The Alchemist.
Oh, yes.
And I really enjoy that book. It's odd because I don't like mystical things, but I really enjoyed that book. And I think, I didn't think about it until this moment, but perhaps it is almost a story about manifestation among other things, because this person is looking for their treasure. And ultimately, as they set out to go find it, I think their openness to life led them to where it actually was. And it was in a place that they weren't actually thinking it was. I won't tell you the end of the book, so I'll stop right there. But but I do think that the character was open to life, and because they kind of were looking for something that they were looking for, they were going all around and doing actions and behaviors and getting out there, and then open in the end to where it was, which is in a completely different place. And I think that sometimes that's what happens with life, is that you might manifest your life, but it may not happen in the way that you think. And so sometimes to be able to manifest it, you do have to be open to where life takes you and what comes along with that. So my last point, which is kind of like to live a well life. That, I think that there's a way to be well, to take care of yourself, and to be authentic in who you are, that also I think may lead to manifestation.
Yeah, I like all that. So many different points. Let's see what I remember to touch back on. Well, I mean, first, just even The Alchemist, right? So listeners, if you're really interested in some of this manifestation, or just going on your own journey with this, The Alchemist is a great book. So that can always be a good start for you. But it does remind us of this authentic journey that we're on, that we can only hope and dream that it's tied to our authentic self. But I think that's what makes it tricky, right? Because kind of like you're describing with the book, it's this journey with all these different twists and turns that are maybe even unexpected. And what we're ultimately dreaming or wishing or longing for might not even be where we're supposed to be, right? But it's well, I manifested this, right? That is what I want. Why can't I have it? But it's having to take a step back and being open and thinking that there might be some other possibilities for me. But I know it's difficult, right? I'm sure we can both relate to the feeling of this is something I've dreamt of, I've manifested, I've tried to do all this work for it. Why is this not happening for me, right? That is just a common human question that we'll all have. But when we think about manifestation, being open to this journey and knowing that you're going to be on this authentic journey, the destination of it, we're actually all unsure. And that's the tricky part, right? It's so unpredictable, sometimes feels out of our control. But knowing that if I'm staying aligned with my authentic self, I should be pretty aligned with my authentic journey. I just have to be open to where that journey takes me, right? But I think that circles back to that discernment. And this has been kind of even for a while, I had this as my own mantra, right? I need more discernment of timing, right? When I have these goals, you're probably similar, but I'm very goal driven, goal oriented. There's something in particular I want, I'm going to go get it, right? And I'm kind of patient, but also come on, what are we doing? I'm going after it. So I had to start reeling myself in of I need discernment to know the timing of something, and if this is even right for me or if it's not, right? Just because I've done all this work to do it and I was really adamant about it, it still might not be right for me, and that's okay. All right. So I'm always trying to ask for more discernment, and that's a work in process too. But I think a lot of us need that discernment. And last quick thing, still trying to figure out what your authentic self needs, what your desires are. I would ask you to reflect and put yourself in a space where everything's stripped away from you, right? You don't have friends maybe influencing you or that you're comparing yourself to. You don't have family members who are maybe a little voice in your head of this is what you should be doing. You don't have social media to compare to what others are doing. If you strip all that away from you, what would be your true heart's desire and longing for, right? It's not connected to any expectations or what society tells us we should do. It's truly what you would want. If you're able to visualize yourself in that place, I think that's a good start, right? To really get to that point of like, what do I even want to manifest? One. And once you get that, then going through these nice steps that you provided of like, you know, writing it down or visualizing it, and doing all those things, trying to make it happen.
Okay.
Nice.
Thanks for tapping in to All Things Authentic. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. For full episodes, find All Things Authentic on your favorite podcast listening platform.